first of all, do we have your permission to use your face and voice for this production?
Sure.
Could you state your name and occupation?
My name is Ron Short, and I'm a musician, playwright, actor with Roadside Theater.
How long have you worked with Roadside Theater?
About 20 years, going on 20 years now. I've been at Apple Shop, I guess about 18, well actually I started in 78, actually employed at Apple Shop, but I'd worked with Roadside a couple years before that doing some writing and performing, but I hadn't decided that I was going to give up my day job, you know.
What does Roadside Theater do?
What do they do? We make plays, make theater that focuses on the lives and the culture of the people of this community, this region being Appalachia, Central Appalachia. And then we take those plays and perform them in theater spaces all over the world.
What are some of your hobbies that you enjoy doing?
Well, working for Apple Shop and Roadside, there's not a whole lot of time to have hobbies. It's and so for me, the blessing and the curse at the same time is that music has been a large part of my life for many years, since I was, you know, singing and child, and then over the years as a part of this work, playing a lot of instruments. And so I spend as much time as I can working on learning to play new instruments, and then I can take it and apply it back to my work. So it fits together. And then the only other thing that I do, allow myself privilege of doing, is riding motorcycles and spending some time pursuing that. I don't know if you could call that a hobby or not. For me, it's not a hobby. It's something, it's like the music. I don't know what I would be without it. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure I want to know what I would be if I didn't have both of those things as a way to give me something else to focus some energy on.
When did you first start riding bikes?
I started riding, I like most people, I started riding before I had a motorcycle. You know, you start in your head first. The desire for anything is what leads you to do the things you want to do. I think without desire, without some kind of passion, that you don't end up doing. It's like playing music. People say, oh, how can you do that? You work at it. And riding, I had this thing in my head and long before, and I can't tell you exactly why. Maybe I can tell you exactly why. When I was a little boy, this is one of those stories that you kind of think to yourself. When I was a little boy, I lived over in Dickinson County, across the mountain here, and it was pretty remote. And when I was a kid, we lived up the holler, up the creek, and at the mouth of the holler was the mailboxes and what we call the big road. It is the one that the cars could run on, and they would send me to the mailbox to pick up the mail. We had what we call a mail boy is what we called him. You know, it didn't mean it in no bad way. That's just called him the mail boy, and the mail boy would come, and my greatest thrill as a child in the summer was to go and meet him, and he'd kid with me, and sometimes he'd give me candy and this and that and the other. And then I'd buy postcards from my granny, and I'd pick up the mail if we got any mail or anything. And if we got a package from Sears, my God, it was celebration all up and down the holler. But one day I went to the mailbox, and I heard what I know now to be a Harley Davidson. It was, I don't know, probably a 50s model, an old panhead or something other, but it was red and white, and it had leather saddlebags, and this guy with goggles, and this girl that I knew of the family lived down the road. Is one of them Mullenses. There's a lot of Mullenses in Clintwood, and they stopped, and she said, "Oh, what a darling little boy," or something to that effect. You know, me, man, I was stubbing my toe, you know, that whole thing. And she said, "You want to go for a ride?" I wanted to go for a ride more than I wanted to meet the mailboy. More than anything. She put me between her. It was one of them big old seats, you know, the motorcycles with just that one big old leather seat on it with the conchos and stuff on it, the big rails on the back, so there wasn't no place for me to go. So now she put me between her and the guy who was riding the motorcycle, which was her boyfriend at the time. I don't remember his name. I don't care. All I remember was that here I was, wedged in by this full-grown woman behind me on top of this motorcycle holding me in. I thought I died going to heaven. When I discovered I wanted to ride motorcycles. That's when I discovered I was a male. That's when I discovered there was a whole lot of world going on out there that I wanted to know about. And that Mullins girl in motorcycles has been my, you know, it's been there in the back of my head ever since. And so I said, I'm gonna get me one of them. So all my life, I wanted a motorcycle, and I bought one. First I started riding small, you know, I got a little Honda 305, and then I got a dirt bike because all my friends were riding dirt bikes, and then I got a Sportster, a Harley. I wanted that bike, and then I just kept going. Never have had a brand new bike. Never have had a brand new bike in my life. Well, one. That's not true. I bought one, but it wasn't a Harley. And I've been at it for. On my driver's license, it says I've been riding a motorcycle for about 30 some years. That's what it says.
You didn't want to get into specifics.
I can't even remember. It was 3 or 4 years ago since I saw you. Don't even remember.
Time does fly.
Yep.
Are there any other members in your family that ride bikes?
Well, that ride, my wife rides. She rides with me, and then she decided that she would like to have a little bike of her own, and so she learned. She went to the safety course and did all that, and learned to ride, and got her own bike, not little baby Harley kind of copy of the. And I think in fact, I think part of it was there are a lot of women riding these days. I mean, you go down to Daytona, which is the biggest bike event in the world, and used to you would see maybe 1 in 100 women riding bikes, and today I bet you it's 1 in 10 women riding their own bikes. And Harley is a wonderful thing because you can make it, you can personalize it. You can make it. That's one other thing. The reason I like them is part of that is some people are into motorcycling because of what the newest science is, with what that computer's going to do for this and that and the other. And I'm really interested in that, but I'm interested in it for another reason. It's that aesthetic, that passion that I was talking about. I like to see people take their bikes and it's a piece of art in some ways. For me, to see, if you go to a big show and you see the things that people do, and you say, how did they do that? How did they think of that? How did they do it? And so I think that's one of the reasons that bike is so appealing to people, is that the Harleys, is that it.
I'm sure he remembers the question.
Yeah? How does it make me feel to see a woman riding a Harley? You got to remember that story I told you a while ago. First woman that I saw, and one of the reasons I'm riding is because that woman on that Harley. And it wasn't just one of those coming of age stories. The whole thing about that bike for me is it's not that I don't want people riding with me on the bike. It's not that I don't want my wife riding, you know, going with me. It's just that I would prefer not to. That's a solo experience in some ways for me. So that's part of the reason she wanted to get a bike. And the other thing of it is that everybody's different. Everybody rides for different reasons, you know, and all kinds of things. But I think it's when people do what they want to do, and that's fine. I'm certainly not intimidated with women on Harleys. As a matter of fact, I'm very pleased to see them doing what they want to do. And at the same time, I think there's two things going on. I'm not sure that every Harley or motorcycle rider in the country wants to have a woman sitting behind him. I'm not sure that that's, you know, necessarily a part of it. I don't think they were put there by the men they're riding with, you know. I think they just not had the opportunity maybe, or thought that they could do it. For me, because of the kind of work that I do, because it's so intense, and it's always with other people. Just about everything I do is this group stuff. What I write has to come back for other people to look at and talk about. When I go out and perform, there's 300 or so people sitting out there looking at you. Yeah. Everything I do is about working with other people. That's the only place that I can be by myself. It's the only place that my mind stops thinking about all those 10 million other things that are going on, and just that becomes that. And so when I'm going down the road in that, and I can't exactly describe it, and I'm not even going to try, it's when I don't want somebody to tap me on the shoulder and going, hey! You know, that, first of all, that's that. And then secondly, I think that there's no reason that a woman should have to be always dependent on somebody to take her for a ride. Go for a ride anytime you want to or need to, you know, and not be tied to somebody else. Now, but if you want to ride with somebody else, then that's fine.
I want to stop begging you for that. I want to stop begging you for a second. Fix this cord.
Just showing.
Yeah, what do you think, maybe, Emmett, if we run up, like, maybe through this hole?
What hole?
Like right there?
That hole he's going to cut in my t-shirt?
Jason, it'll look a lot better if we try and run it around the back and put it up front.
Okay.
What you've done now, when you go ahead, change.
Well,
Kind of take it on his collar.
Okay, you did it.
Sorry about this one.
that's all right.
Me too.
That's all right. You know, you need to get the sound. Everybody thinks it's video. It's sound.
Sound is really the most important.
Otherwise, guess what's going on up there?
That's right.
How do you feel when you're on your bike riding down the road?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
Different every time. Depends on why I'm doing it and where I'm going. But it's back what I was saying. Generally, for me, it's the only time it's the only time my mind switches off. I don't mean switches off completely. That is so, you can't, it's not like driving a car. It's not like driving a car. You can get in a car, you can daydream, you can do this. You can't do that on a bike. It's you and the concentrate. You have, that's like you become, I know it sounds, you know, cliched, but you have to become kind of one with that bike, because if you don't, you're going to fall on your butt. And so you have to concentrate in a different way. You can't be thinking about 1,000 different things. You have to be alert all the time. It takes longer to stop a motorcycle than it does a vehicle, you know. You are less visible, even in spite of what you do. For some reason or other, people just say over and over again, I didn't see you. I've been run out of the road, I didn't see you. The weird thing about it is they'll be looking right at you. Looking right at you, and you see it, you look them in the eye, and they still say they didn't see you. What it amounts to is it didn't register that that's another it's something. They in that car disconnect. I can't disconnect, so I have to stay focused when I'm riding, and it becomes harder. You know, the longer the trip is, you have to be worried about getting tired and all of that. And so there's an intensity about it. But once it starts, if it works together, it's the closest thing to flying, I think, on the ground that there is. I mean, it's like, it's not being up in space where you're disconnected. It's like flying through inner space. It's hard to explain. I just got back from Montana, where I spent 10 days riding all over the state of Montana. It's some of the most spectacular country in the universe. There's no way I could have seen it from a car and seen as much of it as I did. Now, I could have sat down in one spot and stayed there for a week, you know, and I would have looked intently at that spot. But because of the motorcycle, I was able to move through all of that and see it just like this, out here like this. It's different. You smell, when the temperature changes, you feel the temperature change. When you pass a dead skunk, honey, it ain't no remote, you know, incident. You're intimately tied with that skunk for a while. Everything, you see birds you don't see, you see animals that you don't see, everything. It's the closest thing to flying through this space that we're in, and it's also the closest thing for me to the kind of intensity that comes from being on the stage. It's about as close as you can get to performing for an audience, being in control, having and getting out of it what you want out of it. So for me, I see the connection. It's about the only place I can duplicate stage performance outside of performance itself. Gives me another alternative, another way to see the world.
Do you ever feel that bikers are stereotyped against?
You're a woman, do you ever feel that women are stereotyped? Everybody, it's a most curious thing. First of all, most people, when you tell them that you ride a motorcycle, my mother-in-law, God bless her, she's, you know, I don't mean to talk bad about, and he didn't, I'm not talking bad about her, but she offered to pay for psychiatric care treatment for me. It's because she was sure that there must be something wrong with somebody who would do that. There must be something wrong, that anybody who would put themselves, quote, in harm's way, who would get out there and do that on those machines, there must be something wrong. And anybody who needed to do that, there was something wrong. And I think that's there's a general kind of attitude that people have because they don't understand. Now, I have a hell of a lot harder time understanding golf, you know, pardon me. But to me, you know, condemned to a life of golf, I would choose something else. But that's a matter of choice. I don't, you know, I'm just joking here, but I ain't going to be down there saying, you know, the trouble of the world was them golfers, and my God, them people wearing lime green pants with check shirts. You know what I mean? People should have some freedom to represent themselves in the way that they want to. Now, the problem is that stereotypes are hard to do away with once they are created. We know that here in this region. You know, once you get labeled a hillbilly or whatever, from that time on, as soon as you say that word, instant, as soon as you say hillbilly whack, everybody understands. As soon as you say biker, everybody's got this instant image. When, and the truth is that there is as much complexity and cultural and ethnic complexity of the mountain people as there are the people who ride motorcycles. I know people who are CPAs and who wouldn't be the same without riding motorcycles. But the problem is that once the image gets created, then people begin to believe the image, because it's a lot easier to believe that singular thing than it is to try to understand something more complex. Most people will look at women and immediately, or most people will look at a guy with a ponytail, or anything. And they go for the easy way out. It's not easy. It's not easy to understand people, and I think that the industry itself has contributed to that. In order to sell motorcycles, they kind of said, you know, these are bad boy machines and only bad boys ride these, and we all know that women love bad boys. It's classic, you know, or whatever, and we all know that, you know, if a woman rides a motorcycle, she's this, well, whatever. And they use that in a kind of way, and then it turns against them. You know, people begin to say, that's this and that's that. But like that boy I was telling you about today, you know, he's a hard-working family man. He runs a motorcycle repair shop. He's doing his very best to take care of his family. Now, are there people in this world who are like that stereotype? You better believe it. You better believe it. There's absolutely people out there who are what they call 1%ers, and that's about what they are, about 1% of the population, and they declare that they are 1%ers, and we ain't talking riding motorcycles, we're talking about a way of life. And but 99% of the people, that's not the way they live. Who ride motorcycles, that's not the way they live. And so I'm not saying that it's that 1% that's caused the problem, and the fact of the matter is I don't think that's the case. I think it's everybody who don't know about the other 99% that causes the problem. It's not them people that have created the problems. It's those people who are willing to believe that that's the way everybody acts. That don't work for anything.
When you pull up at a store in the parking lot on your bike, do you feel that people look at you differently than they would if you were driving a car?
Sure I do. And you know, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't, that wasn't a part of it. You know, I wouldn't be riding a motorcycle that flashy. That part of it is a demonstration of personal style. It's about, you know, to use a $10 word, it's about an aesthetic. It's about how do you want to move through the space that you're in. You know, you can choose 100,000 ways to represent yourself. And so maybe my mother-in-law was like, why do you choose to represent yourself that way? I like that. In fact, first of all, when you come up, my motorcycle makes enough noise, you hear me coming. I don't pull up in the parking lot and you don't know that I'm there. You know, it's like an old friend of mine, a guy that I knew down in Knoxville, Tennessee one time, he kept getting run over by, he was an alcoholic, and he would go down in the train yards and he'd pass out and go to sleep, and sleep down there because it was warmer. And he got run over about 2 or 3 times by the train, just bumped and knocked and got tore up. And he said the problem is that it's them diesels, you can't hear them coming. Well, you can hear me coming, you know. And that's part of, I want you to hear me coming. And the other thing is that I want my motorcycle to be more than just a ride. If I want to ride, I'll get in my little Ford truck. If I want to just get from point A to point B, you know what I mean? This ain't just about transportation. It's about how I get from point A to point B and how I feel about it in the process. And so, yeah, people do look at you differently when you pull up, but I think it's changed. I don't think everybody immediately grabs the kids and runs either. you know, because now more and more times people will come up and say, what kind of motorcycle is that? You know, where'd you get it? Da, 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 you know, and they'll talk about it. And I'm just amazed how many old guys will come up and say, oh man, I had one of them back in such and such a time, and oh, I really would like to have one of them again. You know, and so yes, people do look at you when you come up. They do look at you funny sometimes, but a lot of times you get conversation that you never would get if you just pulled up and got a pop, got back in your Jeep and gone.
Could you explain some unknown facts about bikers that people might not know about?
Unknown facts? I don't know any facts about anything. That's been the problem in my life. If I knew facts, I could be in business selling facts, but I don't know any facts. I know that there's no such thing, quote, as a typical biker. I know that that people who ride for as many reasons as there are people. I know that every year in March, nearly 500,000 people come to Daytona Beach, Florida from all over the world, and it's motorcycles that brings them there. Some of the things that go along with it, you know, but and those are things that I do know, and when I look at that 500,000 people, where for the first time ever the patterns of traffic change from car-oriented to motorcycle-oriented, where people don't look at somebody else and go, oh God. People, you know, they just somehow or other, all of these people come from all of these different places, looking all totally differently, and for a week, generally, the only violence or the only discord is 9 times out of 10 the accidents caused when the pattern of traffic, people get upset at being upset, and they start hitting bikers for 2 or 3 days. There's a window. Safety on motorcycles, I do know this, is as dependent upon the other person as it is upon the person who is riding the motorcycle, and nearly 80% of the accidents are caused by somebody in a car hitting a motorcycle. These are things that I do know. I do know that there are people who choose to wear helmets, and there are people who choose not to wear helmets, and the statistics do not tell you which group is right. Just straight statistics cannot quite explain to you which one is safer. No, but that's a choice. That's as much as I know about motorcycles, except how to change my oil. I know how to do that, and some other things.
Did you customize your own bike?
No, the Wright brothers, me and the Wright brothers been doing it over a period of time. I'm finishing up, hopefully this week, after extended almost a year much of work. That's another thing I've always wanted, and another thing I've just decided to give myself late in life. I don't have a bass boat, and I don't golf. This is the only thing that I, quote, put, you know, my money into, and so I just decided I've always wanted that bike, that what I said before, and this will be my bike. It won't just be one that Harley made and I own it. This will be my bike, and there won't be another bike exactly like it. I mean, it's still lots of things, but there won't be another bike exactly like it anywhere. And so I've always wanted that, and then Barry. I've seen the work that he has done. I think it's pretty remarkable, to tell you the truth, and that's why I think you ought to go talk to him. I think it's pretty remarkable that a little old shop up here in Neon Junction has had at least three bikes featured in the biggest biker magazine in the world. And that is a difficult thing to get into. He's had at least three bikes featured in that he built out of that little shop up there. Some ultra customs and some restoration work that he did. I think it's pretty remarkable. And it says, you know, that there's some people here. I mean, Barry's a coal miner, but his heart is with motorcycles. And you see it in, that's where you see it when you see him, the work that he does. I think that's a good demonstration of what it means to be a biker, more than anything, more than just somebody who gets out, owns a bike and rides it. You know, that's not, no, this is somebody who, it's an important part of their lives, not just in terms of that he rides, but it's an important part of his life, and that's how he helps feed his family, you know. And he's got the skills and talents to be able to do that. So I trust him and to do my work for me. And you can't trust everybody in this day, in this world. As another fact I know, you can't trust everybody. Just remember that.
I know there's a lot of different groups of bikers that do charities. Have you ever participated in any charities?
There was used to be when I had, there was a guy over in Kingsport has every year a toy run and a food run, food and toys. I mean, it's a thing for kids and so, but he does it at Thanksgiving too for help people with food and stuff. And so I used to go over and be a part of that. You know, most of the organization of events and stuff is usually a little farther outside of the region than here. More people over there and more dealerships and that kind of thing. But Pappy's was just, he was just, sold t-shirts and stuff, but he knew a family and he just started collecting food up, and then he said to these guys who were coming in, you know, this family, they ain't got nothing, they would come and bring stuff, and then they just kind of turned it into a, you know, an event, and he does it every year now, and they get a lot of stuff, and I went over and was a part of that, and then I went on. You get money for MD for muscular dystrophy. Muscular dystrophy is the kind of adopted project of Harley Davidson, and they raise lots of money, and I've participated in a couple of events. They'll have, you know, what they call just events, and go and raise money for that. So that's the kind of thing they do. And how many years ago? Now, I mean, it's got me worrying about the time. But it was a few years ago. Every year on Veterans Day in Washington, D.C., there's a thing called Run to the Wall. I got involved with Vietnam veterans bikers through a guy that I knew who decided that there were a lot of people who couldn't go to Washington, D.C. There were a lot of people, and he made what they call a moving wall. And what it is, it's a replica of the Vietnam Wall, and they take it around from community to community, and so they see a kind of a smaller replica, and I helped bring that down to my hometown in Big Stone, because I went to the first, I got on the mailing list and talked to some people, and I went to the first Run to the Wall in Washington, D.C. It was a really important thing to do. It was for me personally, and for the people who were there. Many Vietnam vets who came home. See, Vietnam vets when they came home, there wasn't any kind of support groups for them. Like the old VFWs, you know, you came back from World War II, the guys could go and they could be together and they could talk and they had meetings and they would this. When people came back from Vietnam, I don't know if many people remember this, VFW wouldn't take Vietnam vets into, they said it wasn't a war and they lost and a whole number of things, and so there was no support groups for them. There was no place where they could go and be together. The only thing that they had was the thing called AMVETS, and it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. It wasn't that the people there, it's just that if you've been in Vietnam, it's like asking somebody who rides as opposed to somebody who don't ride. If you've been in Vietnam, you needed somebody who'd been there to talk to. And there was no support groups. And out of that came the Vietnam Veterans Motorcycle Club. And it became the most important support group that Vietnam vets had. In fact, it kind of took the place of all those other organizations. And it was a chance to ride together, to talk, to go to events, to meet. And then that run to the wall, that thing, they said, look, it's time we had our parade in Washington, D.C. It's time we got our parade. And if we're not going to get it, you know, at the time, you know, if we're not going to get it, then let's do it our way. And so, gathered up at the Pentagon and rode Harleys down the streets of Washington, D.C. on an empty Washington, D.C. on a Sunday to the wall. That was about one of the most powerful events that I ever participated in. It was like that parade that people didn't get, and at the same time they were coming in on their own, in their own way, making their own statement. So those are the things that I've mostly been involved in terms of groups. I don't have much time, what with touring and trying to have a life at my home and riding. I don't have much time to participate in a lot of group activities, and that's why I don't belong to a lot of things. Besides, I think there's a lot of people who just don't join things.
I'm kind of at a blank now.
I got another question. Okay. I've noticed, like, when I go to Washington to visit my family, I notice there's a lot of bikers on the road. And most of the time when bikers pass each other, they have, you know, most of the time they wave at each other. And in cars, you don't really see people waving at each other that much. Do you consider bikers as a family?
You know, I have a hard time sometimes consider my family as family. I think there are people who, I was saying, there's more than just motorcycles that bring people to Daytona. There is a need to be around people like them, to have a sense that I want to belong. I mean, if that's what you, I mean, like a family, you know that people are not going to be down on you. You know that they will kind of understand. They're not going to ask you dumb questions, or, you know. So I think everybody wants to belong to something bigger than them. They want to be part of something that makes a larger. No, I think being alone is that whole idea of alone. You can't be. As soon as you get on a motorcycle, you know, you have a connection. Now, it does not necessarily mean that immediately you should trust everybody that rides that motorcycle. No. That gets you in trouble real fast. But it does mean that in all likelihood you will have something which you can start talking about to get around whatever other differences you might have. You know, if you have a place to start talking, then it's not those differences that start the conversation. You know what I mean? If you're talking to somebody who's African American, you know, You don't want this conversation just to be based on the fact, hey, you're black and I'm not. Or you want to start at a place where you hold something in common and then you can deal with differences in a different way. And I think that is one of the reasons that people ride and go to events, is that they want to belong to something that's bigger than them. There's so many people pushed here and outside and this and that who don't belong to anything, that feel like that I don't have anything that I can. And I think for many people that's a powerful pull. I don't deny that. And I admit I feel a lot more comfortable around those people. I don't have to worry about. I really do not have to worry that I'm going to say something wrong or do something wrong. I mean, you can be ignorant in any situation. You know, I mean, premeditated ignorance. You know, I don't mean.
Do you consider bikers as family?
You know, I have a hard time sometimes consider my family as family. I think there are people who, I was saying, there's more than just motorcycles that bring people to Daytona. There is a need to be around people like them, to have a sense of that I want to belong. I mean, if that's what you, I mean, like a family, you know that people are not going to be down on you. You know that they will kind of understand. They're not going to ask you dumb questions, or, you know. So I think everybody wants to belong to something bigger than them. They want to be part of something that makes a larger, no, I think being alone is that whole idea of alone, you can't be. As soon as you get on a motorcycle, you know, you have a connection. Now, it does not necessarily mean that immediately you should trust everybody that rides that motorcycle. No. That gets you in trouble real fast. But it does mean that in all likelihood you will have something which you can start talking about to get around whatever other differences you might have. You know, if you have a place to start talking, then it's not those differences that start the conversation. You know what I mean? If you're talking to somebody who's African American, you know, you don't want this conversation just to be based on the fact, hey, you're black and I'm not. Or you want to start at a place where you hold something in common and then you can deal with differences in a different way. And I think that is one of the reasons that people ride and go to events, is that they want to belong to something that's bigger than them. There's so many people pushed here and outside and this and that who don't belong to anything, that feel like that I don't have anything that I can. And I think for many people that's a powerful pull. I don't deny that. And I admit I feel a lot more comfortable around those people. I don't have to worry about. I really do not have to worry that I'm going to say something wrong or do something wrong. I mean, you can be ignorant in any situation. You know, I mean, premeditated ignorance. You know, I don't mean we all got shortcomings, but I mean, you can sit there and figure out how to say something stupid, you know. But people in that environment, I think, are given freedom. And I think that's the reason people sometimes do go out. I think there's as much theater going on there as there is reality, you know. And so if it allows me the opportunity to go, hey, how you doing, to somebody and break down, you know, that, then I say, fine, use it. So, and when there's an opportunity, I'm out on my bike constantly, absolutely, all the time. And it don't matter what kind of motorcycle you ride. I ain't gonna wave at the Harley riders and not wave at the guys who ride in the Gold Wings. That's stupid. If I'm caught out there on the road and I'm gonna be waiting for a Harley rider to come by, I may be waiting a long time, but the next guy down the road may be riding a whatever. I want him to stop and help me. You know, I don't want to wait and say, no, excuse me, you know, wait for somebody else to take this nail out of my butt. No, you take it out. So that's, and you know in your mind kindly that somebody will stop for you. I don't mean that's any reason you should just get out there on the road and think I can just go unprepared, but people will stop for you. They will help you. Some people will rob you. But you take your chances, you know. And I think that there are people who find it very important to believe that somebody might wave at them, and it might make a difference in how you feel in that day or not feeling that day. You know, I don't wave because I think they're going to wave back. I don't care. They don't have to wave back. That shouldn't stop me.
If you would say something to make people more open-minded about bicycles, what would you tell them?
Come on over, I'll give you a ride. I think the only way to change people's minds is to have them experience it. I can't tell you something and you're going to believe me. I can't change your mind. I wouldn't try to do that. All I can say is, you know, until you have the experience, until you have some understanding of what it is you're talking about, then it's going to be harder for us to have a conversation. So if you want to know, come and ride. Then we can talk. And you just say, God, I'll never get on that thing again. Then, you know, we got something to talk about. But if they say, you know, I understand why you do that now. Kindly, I understand why you do that. Then we got something else to talk about. I don't think you can get somebody to change their mind any more than you get somebody to love you. That comes because people give it up. It ain't because you force it out of them. It comes because they give it up. And I would say to people, come on down and go for a ride. You know, you don't have to run to you don't have to ride to Sturgis or whatever. Just ride through these mountains one time and look at them the way that I see them from the bike. And maybe it won't change the way you feel about bikes, but it might change the way you feel about these mountains. And if that happens, you know, I would take that as just as important as convincing people, trying to change people's minds about motorcycle riders.
Would you mind, maybe, if we were going to the theater, would you mind maybe playing your guitar for us a little bit? I've probably been doing that all day.
No, I don't mind. I'll do that. That's. Well, nobody knows who they are, they say. Rolling out of the mountains down that hillbilly highway, carrying everything they own in an old rucksack. No turning around, no looking back. They got guns and dogs and bad reputations. I said, Lord, have mercy, it's a hillbilly nation. Detroit and Baltimore town is a shaking. Oh, the sky is black and the earth is a shaking. And don't Don't you mess with one if you wanna face some. You better call out the Army and the United Nations. Cornbread and taters, beans and ham and bacon. I said, Lord, have mercy, it's a hillbilly nation. Get paid on Friday and they broke on Monday. And as a matter of fact, they already broke on Sunday. They spent the whole weekend with Grandma in Kentucky. And if they get back at home, they sure be lucky. Well, look out, boys, you gotta face some. I said, Lord, have mercy, it's a hillbilly nation. But this ain't jail and LMA. Don't you get in the face, don't you stand in the way. Look out now, there's hell to pay. You can read about it in the book of Revelation. I said, Lord, have mercy, it's a hillbilly nation. Grandma's dead, the land's all gone, and nobody seems to know where